The advice and opinions expressed by Dr. Grant-Pichet and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice.
Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet is the...
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grant-Pichet.
Dr. Grant-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen.
Good morning.
We're here with Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet and she's going to be answering your questions live for the next hour, which is kind of amazing.
It's so much fun for us.
Well, and do you know that we've started now into the 14th year of doing this?
Yeah,
like
it's pretty amazing.
The show is more than a teenager now. And still I'm always a little bit gobsmacked on Tuesday mornings.
That we
it's
keep
like,
doing it. It's amazing.
well, no, that I get to spend this hour with you and that, I get to sit here while you're of service to the whole community is a very huge honor
Thank
for
you.
me.
It's so nice. It's
So.
the longest relationship I've had.
That's hilarious. Anyway, good to start the show off with a laugh. We're welcoming all of you. If you don't know Dr. Grant-Pichet, I'm so glad that you're here so that you get to know her and love her like the rest of us do. She's a true expert in the field of autism and working in this field for more than 45 years. I don't even mumble it anymore. I used to be like, 45 years.
Yeah, we're proud of it. It's kind of cool.
It's, yes, there is a painting aging under a bed somewhere for her. And her skincare regimen, we all want to know what it is written to the nth degree. But part of it is genes. Your mom looks amazing too.
Oh, thank you.
So there we go. But she has been working in this field for a really long time, and there is no one who has worked as hard as her to make sure that people remember that individuals on the spectrum are whole entire beings and individuals at that they have medical needs, that they have wants and needs and requests that are important to listen to them. And I gotta get T-shirts made because your catchphrase that I always glom onto.
It's got to be fair.
It's got to be fair.
Yeah.
And I love that because
yeah.
that is a watchword for everyone. That if anything that you're doing with somebody on the autism spectrum, it's got to be fair.
Right.
And if we all adhered to just that principle, the world would be a better place.
I hope so.
So there we go. But she donates this hour every week. We were just saying that, entering the 14th year of this, to answer your questions wherever you are in the world. We hope that you will write in. We're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, a bunch of other sites, and I'm going to tell a little Facebook story in a minute. But many of you have seen that we've had a little bit of a kerfuffle with Facebook over the last month. It's been hard.
Right.
But I feel like there's a reason for everything. And there was a very big reason for us last week that maybe I'll share later if we have time. But anyway, right now we're live, and if you're live, you can be interacting with us. We're already saying hello to Autism Journey with Elijah. We're saying hello to Where's Waldo. We're waving back at you. Thrilled that you guys are here. You guys can be writing in too so that we can talk, both of us can talk with you and you can ask your questions in real time. We love that. I do like to give the disclaimer that there is no expert, including Dr. Grant-Pichet, who can give individually specific advice in this format because you don't have eyes on the situation.
Right.
So that would be a disservice to assume otherwise. But we all know, if you've been watching the show, that she can give amazing insight into where you should go next, what questions you might want to ask. Really, really helpful. I do want to say, if you're not watching us live, and most of our audience does not watch us live, if you're watching us recorded when we have our videos on YouTube, everything that we do, we upload to YouTube so that you can watch audio and listen to audio and watch with video as well. But if you want to download the podcast and do just the audio only, which is what a lot of you do, you take it with you. We love that. You can certainly do that. We're a free download wherever you get your podcasts. But do make sure that you have subscribed specifically now two separate entities, Autism Live and Ask Dr. Doreen. That they're two separate subscriptions now. Make sure that you do that. If you're somebody who's listening in podcast and you love the show, you know that we don't charge you guys to watch the show, but we have wonderful sponsors. So when you're listening, you will hear some advertising. Some of you have reached out and said, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather pay. We have made that possible for you. You can go to glow.fm DreenRadio.com/Autism Live. Now, if you're going to pay for that, you will get both the Autism Live and the Ask Dr. Doreen right now. So that's $5 a month if you want to get it with no ads, and it's even cheaper if you pay for it for the year, because there's a savings for us that they don't run your card, and we pass that savings on to you. Because what I love is that we're here. The mission always here at Autism Network is to provide information and inspiration. This is not a way to charge you money. And I love that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. But we have to keep the lights on. It has to pay for itself, and so please support us in making that happen as well. So anyway, our topic today, we always have a topic that we start out, is early intervention. We're going to start out with a question about that, but I see some questions that are already coming in that we're going to get to in just a second. So if you're like, oh no, well, we're not early intervention people, don't go to another channel, because we will answer whatever questions that you have. We just start off with the topic. So our starter question today is, what is EIBI? Is it still a thing? Someone used that phrase, and when I asked the person from my son's school team about it, they said it was something old that doesn't get used anymore. Oh, I'm laughing out of sheer nervousness for the way we're careening into the ocean here. It's not a good thing. It's not a funny thing.
No, it's just
tragic.
There's just so much misinformation.
Yeah.
And what's annoying is the confidence with which people actually make these statements. EIBI stands for Early Intensive Behavioral Intervention. EIBI. So it's early and it's intensive. So it's essentially, it's ABA that's provided to very young children. So children generally below the age of 4 or 4.5 even. And the idea with it is that it needs to be more intensive than an older child, only because that is the population with which, if you do a lot of intensive work, their possibility of coming out of the diagnosis and learning everything they need to in order to lose their diagnostic symptoms is higher. It's a higher probability because they're younger. So, and the programs are similar. They're to just general ABA. They're different in, I guess, 2 ways. One is you're looking at a comprehensive program, so you're very focused on all different areas of functioning. So, generally if I'm doing an early intensive program, I would be focused on language, because now you're looking at working with like a child who's 3 or 2, 3. And so I would be doing a lot of language work, some play, some early executive functioning skills. Clearly there's going to be some adaptive or self-help type stuff. And then maybe the beginning of social. Those are kind of the curriculum areas. You're not doing a whole bunch of cognitive skills, because cognitive skills tend to really develop after the age of 5. You may have to, depending on the child, do a bunch of stuff in motor. Depends on the child, really. And you're not working on academics at all. So really, that's what EIBI is. And the other difference is the format that you usually work with a child is more structured. So it's much more it's play to begin with, but it really by 3 should be very focused on discrete trial training. And I want to reiterate that. That's so important, because coming back into the field after 5 years, I see that a lot of people have moved away from structured ABA, and there's less and less of DTT going on, which is very concerning to me, because the progress that you make with DTT is much more than you do with NET, anything play-based, PRT, etc., because it's just a lot more structured and you're teaching faster. So I really do encourage a lot of DTT at that age.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding around what DTT is and how it is used in ABA. And I feel like it's strange to me that I feel like there's camps of people who are like, DTT, and they want to just do TT.
Yeah.
No,
okay,
they just want to do DTT, and they think, like, I don't want to say that, but there was a person who was very big in the world of autism 20 years ago that he was all about, he would just call ABA DTT and not distinguish between the fact that DTT is a part of ABA, not the whole of ABA. And it used to make me break out into hives, but he was all about DTT. And now it seems like there's a whole bunch of people that are like, you know, that DTT is bad. We don't do that at all. We only do NET. And to me, this is shocking and ill thought out.
It's very ill thought out, especially because if you think about it, Shannon, the original 1987 study, which is the seminal study in this field that showed if you do intensive ABA, children with autism can actually, half can lose their diagnosis altogether, right? That was all DTT.
Yeah.
And that's kind of important to point out because, I mean, the original form of ABA was DTT, okay? And I can talk about what DTT is.
Yeah.
But the idea with NET or natural environment training, and, you know, as opposed to discrete trial training, the whole idea was that anything you learn in the DTT format has to be generalized to the environment, which of course is true. Otherwise, like if it's in a very structured environment and the child's in an unstructured environment, they won't use those skills. But, you know, now I look at therapy and I'm like, there's no DTT in places where there should be.
Yeah.
And that kind of concerns me.
So what I always say to parents is think of it this way, that ABA is a car.
Yeah.
And it can be a fast car, and you have a destination that you want to go.
Right.
DTT is the steering wheel.
Yeah.
If I'm going to Las Vegas, I don't want to take my car without a steering wheel.
Right.
But I would never just take the steering wheel to Las Vegas.
Right, right.
I would want both.
Okay, how about if you look at it this way? Just look at it in terms of normal, just what our kids learn in school, right? The very first year, they're memorizing a ton of stuff. They're memorizing the alphabet, numbers. They start the phonetic sound memorization. All of addition, subtraction, all of that stuff is more rote, structured, and it's only years later that we start to apply things to, you know, you went to the store and you bought 3 oranges. That doesn't come until the formulas are memorized.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing when you're looking at like teaching a child how to say sentences. You have to start with them memorizing a bunch of labels. It's really that important. Yeah.
And the other thing that I have said before, but tell me if this is apt, that, you know, if I'm going to go to a dance school and I say to them, I want to learn how to samba.
Yeah.
They're not just going to throw on a record and start moving me around the room sambing because I won't get it. There are some people who could, but I won't.
Right.
They're going to have to break it down for me, and they're going to put the little shoe outlines on the floor, and they're going to go, we're going to count 1, 2, hip, hip.
Yeah.
Right? And they're going to do that for quite a while. Then they'll put on some music.
There you go.
I'll do it rudimentary for, then they're going to go back to the basics.
That's a perfect
make it a little,
example.
And that really is
right.
DTT.
And so let's talk for a moment about what DTT actually is.
Yeah.
So the discrete trial is a sequence of things or that go together to teach. So, and it starts with an instruction, which is the beginning of a discrete trial is an instruction which is very clear, concise, and short, and it is called the discriminative stimulus, or SD. That's the first part of a discrete trial. So, and that means that the teacher, the instructor, therapist, gives an instruction, right? Says an SD. It'll be something like touch nose, or clap hands, or do this, or whatever it is. And then you wait a specific amount of time for the child to respond, and that is the R, which is the child's response. And then you consecrate it with some form of stimulus reinforcer, which is the consequence. So I give an instruction, I wait for the child to respond, and I give a consequence. The other portion of a discrete trial is just the prompt. And the prompt means if I give an instruction and the child doesn't quite know how to answer, I help the child with some form of aid, whether it's modeling or it's moving the object closer to the child, I prompt, I help the child, and that has to occur together with the SD or instruction. And that's it. That's a discrete trial. So the format is structured, and I, as a therapist, will give an instruction. I might prompt along with it. The child responds, and I reward. That's it. And the whole process of doing discrete trial therapy is that or training, is that you will break things up, as you said, Shannon, into smaller instructional units, and you will instruct the child in a very, very clear format. So you'll always use the same instruction so that it becomes easy for the child. So for instance, I will not teach the child a whole bunch of different activities like clap hands, touch nose, stand up, turn around. None of those will happen until I know that the child has learned just to imitate me. And my instruction will always be, do this, do, whatever it is. So it just makes things easier for the child. Then I start to add on to it and make it more and more complex. But it is the whole core of ABA, because it has to do with simplifying the instruction and giving a very clear consequence for the response. And when you get into natural environment stuff, the reason it's slower and not as easy to teach using just NET or even PRT is that it gets a little confusing. Like I might tell the child something like, look at me, as an example. In DTT, I would be prompting it every single time and very clearly saying, yes, you got it right, or no, you didn't get it right, let's do it again. Whereas in the natural environment, I might say, hey, take a look at me. And the child might do 5 other things and then look at me. Right. And I reward it. And what I'm actually rewarding is those 5 other things and the looking. Yeah. And so that's kind of why it's really important to start with a clean, structured method, which is DTT. And I'll never move away from that. In fact, I just talked to someone at CARD, and I was like, we need to do a study where we contrast the rate of acquisition when you do the TT versus something else.
But I think some of it is that parents need to understand, too, because I know there weren't a lot of videos about ABA when we were starting, and there are tons of videos now, but they all look weird, right? We don't understand what it is because we haven't seen it before, and when you said touch whatever, the one for me was touch car, that they started saying touch car, and I was like, oh no, what have we gotten ourselves into? Because they go touch car, and I went, how are we going to get to college with touch car?
I know.
It looks bizarre, you guys, but let me assure you, we did. We got to college from touch car.
It all together,
yeah. So kind of amazing. Right. I want to get to some questions that people are writing in. Andrea, by the way, says, I love DTT. It took me going through 3 centers before I was able to find people using it. Even the developmental pediatrician had told me not to use DTT and only go to places using NET. There's bad information out there. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you just want it to take longer, but why would we want it to take longer?
But exactly. And the other thing is, it depends on also the child a little bit. So it's kind of like if we're talking about it like a 5-year-old, very, very high functioning, very minimal effect of autism symptoms, and really all you need, they're able to pay attention, all that sort of stuff, and they're able to learn from their environment. If all those skills exist, yeah, certainly you can use NET and you'll catch up. But if those skills don't exist, you do need to start more structured, just be able to catch up.
There we go. But her original question was, my 4.1-year-old son is in full-time ABA and has a good amount of language, no conversation yet, though. At church on Sunday, I was told that he is mimicking and following along with the other kids. I asked if he interacted with the kids and was told no. How, when do I need to work on with him playing with kids his age?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Andrea, and you should have your full-time ABA team working on this. All you have to do is invite a play date. And when we start to really focus on play, we first want to make sure the child has the skills for certain play activities that are age appropriate, and then, which is something they can teach him in his ABA program. And then you will invite one other child, and the child will come home, and then you'll practice those play skills with one other child, including the conversation aspect of it. and there's a therapist there who can prompt and aid and make the whole game fun for both. And you'll do that a few times until your child gets very comfortable, and then you will introduce to, let's say, a group of other children. It's very important to get the aspect of playing with one other child first, because there's a lot of like listening, turn taking, giving up something that you like, all those types of things. And 4 is young enough where you can just start with one child and then have 2 or 3 kids come over, and then they'll be able to start interacting a little bit more. Also, your ABA team will look at different environments, like church, for instance, and give your child conversational skills that would apply to those specific environments. It's great,
The mimicking is a good sign, yes?
Oh, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
We're saying hi to the mighty. This is live right now. The date is Tuesday, what is it, the 24th, 25th of October,
Honestly,
2023?
do not ask
I think
me.
it's on
It
here
is
some.
the 24th.
24th of October, there we
Yeah.
go. 2023. So, and thank you, Autism Journey with Elijah, for telling them that it's live. And Andrea says, awesome, thank you. Stephen says, DTT allows so much work to be packed into the therapy hours. After a while, my son didn't even need the reward, so his 30 hours a week was really quality hours. I love that. Thank you, Stephen. Autism Journey with Elijah says, we had our IEP through Arizona. They do not stop, stop providing these services at 3 years old. This is how we figured out he was autistic. This changed our lives. The earlier, the better. And thank you for telling that as well. I want to move to a question that came in earlier this week. I'm concerned about my 2-year-old, that they may be on the spectrum. He speaks, but in one-word phrases and only for things he wants most. There are a lot of tantrums. He does make eye contact, but he seems unhappy a lot of the time. My main concern is that he hits his head on the floor and on the wall. We live in an area of the world where we have access to Facebook. That is our only internet. What can I do to help my son?
Oh, so difficult. It's
Right?
just, my gosh.
Yeah.
So, at that age, this is a very, very young age, and that's great, right? I think you said 2, correct?
2.
Yeah, so that's terrific because you have some time to really have a positive impact. I think at that age, you're trying to figure out what the child is trying to communicate when they are doing these types of behaviors. That would probably be my first goal, is to figure out what language, if the child had language, what would they be saying instead of banging their head? And it's not always, sometimes it could be a variety of things. Like parents will think, oh my gosh, it's this or the other thing. It could be lots of different things. It could be that, he has a headache, in which case we have to figure out what's causing the headache. It could be that he's just frustrated, doesn't want to do what was just asked of him, or doesn't want to give up something that he has, or wants access to something that he doesn't have, right? It's just communication. And usually our kids at that age get frustrated, and they'll communicate by doing something like that, because when they do that, we as parents try to give them everything, right? Is it this? Is it that? Do you want this? And a lot of the time we finally figure out what they were trying to communicate. So I think the most important thing for you as a parent right now is to do 2 things. One is, well, first of all, you as a parent need to learn the techniques involved in ABA. And that means that you'd have to go online. I'm not sure if you can do this through Facebook. Maybe you can, but there are lots and lots of resources where you can learn the protocols used in ABA. So, for example, using DTT to teach MANS, which is requests. It would be very important for your child to learn how to request things. You'll find out relatively quickly if your child is able to vocalize their requests, or if you need to set up a picture exchange system where your child can use icons to communicate. But the sooner that you teach your child to ask for things, which is pretty much the only form of communication around 2, it's manding and tacting. So it's requesting things and labeling things. The sooner you get there, the less these other behaviors will occur because your child will be able to communicate actually what they want instead of doing a challenging behavior. So it's really important for you, and the only way that you can get there is for you as a parent to learn the protocols and techniques in ABA. For example, the first thing we do in ABA is a functional behavior assessment, which goes through and observes all the things that are happening before a behavior and all the things that are happening after a behavior, and they help us make assumptions about why the behavior is happening. So, like I just said, there could be lots of reasons that your child is hitting his head down, and there are techniques in ABA that help us. Oh, sure.
I'm playing you at the same time. Sorry
No
about
problem. There's ways that we can figure out why he's doing those types of behaviors, and that's super important because unless you know the reason, you're not going to be able to deal with it the right way. Like if a child, for instance, is hitting his head because he has a headache, that's a whole different thing than, you'd want him to learn how to say headache or like pain or owie or whatever it is at 2, so that you can treat it, as opposed to, let's say, if he's hungry or if he wants a toy or if he's mad at you because he doesn't want to give up something. All of those have different communications that would be able to happen and would let us know what's going on. In ABA, we generally would start with an FBA, functional behavior assessment, to determine why challenging behaviors are happening. Then we would replace those challenging behaviors with communication. And then we would just build on the communication, because the more communication the child has, the more they're able to express themselves and the more they're able to interact with others, socialize, etc. Now, how you can get all that knowledge through Facebook only, I don't know, but perhaps the answer is for you to write into us and we can at least send you some books. Because I think that's maybe the way to go, is if we can just send you our books, a bunch of books. Shannon's book is very, very helpful for parents. It'll guide you through those early years and the difficult phases of deciding what to do. And we can also send you additional books, that our book, which talks about ABA more, and other ABA books that are maybe very simple and can help you through the procedures.
Wonderful. Well, I will say your book is a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, it's a little technical, the book that we wrote. It's a little hard for parents, and like I really would love to send this parent something that's very basic.
Yeah.
Because like it's so important, and I just feel horrible that they're in a place where they don't have access to anything.
Yeah. But I'm glad that they wrote in. And what it reminded me, and I wanted to bring Facebook up, that's why I was playing you at the same time. I have you playing on every available surface that I can, as everyone should. My 3-year-old was diagnosed 6 months ago, and we have been trying to get services. We got a 10-hour-a-week prescription, which I'm hearing isn't right. They weren't even able to get us 10 hours. We are trying to get started with a 3rd provider now. The other 2 told us they couldn't staff his team after making us wait for months. I want more hours, but no one seems to have them. My son is in a co-op preschool now. My question is, should I take him out of there? I would do it if we could get 40-hour staff, but right now we can't, and I only have a prescription for 10 hours. Why is this all so difficult?
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, what do you recommend, Dr. Gramsci?
Gosh, what would I do? I think I would probably... so here's the thing with preschool. Preschool is in the morning usually, and most ABA providers have availability and have therapists available in the morning. The problem that providers hit is that all parents only want services after 3 o'clock, after school. And so that makes it super difficult. If your child is young, I would probably talk to my ABA providers and say, guys, if I give you the morning hours, can you staff him? I would probably try to see if the school has an afternoon program. That would be ideal, is if I'm doing ABA every morning and weekend, by the way, and then I'm doing school in the afternoon, because most ABA providers, as I said, they don't have enough therapists to work in the afternoons. So here, I would work on setting up a program where, for instance, in the mornings, I'm doing ABA. And by the way, it's a little strange to be doing ABA with two different organizations, to be honest, because the program becomes confusing unless those two organizations meet every week and figure out how to do things exactly the same, right?
Which is a time suck.
It's a time suck, and it's almost impossible, because you'll have a BCBA at each organization and they'll be working on different things. So,
but I think I agree with you completely. But I think what they're describing here, and I've had a lot of parents with this, that they get their prescription and they're given a provider and they sit on the waiting list. And then eventually they say, this isn't what, can we get moved off the waiting list? And they say no, so now they say we're going to send you to
another provider.
So they're not actually
it's not
getting
simultaneous,
services yet.
right?
Yeah, they're at the third provider trying to get started now.
Yeah,
they're moving the chairs around on the Titanic.
Exactly, and I think they said the age of the child is 3, right?
3.
Yeah, so let's just start there. So it's wrong. Unless your child is extremely high functioning and really doesn't need a lot of support, that means when they were diagnosed, they were given a 1-1 designation. That means they need very little support, which means they should have language, they just don't have a lot of social communication behavior, okay? If that's the case, then 10 hours might be enough. Otherwise, I would always want to start with much more intensive than that. I would definitely want at least 20, 25 hours just so I see how the child is learning. If it's a 2-2 or 3-3 child, I'm starting with minimum 25 hours, and I'm doing that on the mornings and the weekends. And the way that you would do this is perhaps one of the provider that you with could give you therapists if you had every morning free. So that would be, let's say, 15 hours during the week, right? 3-hour sessions, or even 12 hours during the week, whatever they can give you. And you do that in the mornings, and then you hire someone yourself or 2 people who just works the weekends, and they can do another 10 hours on the weekends, and that's very, very important. So if you hire someone, they can also get trained. There's a ton of different ways to get trained. We can talk about that separately, but online, there's a lot of different training programs online. And they can then work for you on the weekends, and you could pay them yourself, because insurance is only going to cover the people who go through an official provider. Then in the afternoons, you could still be in preschool, but I would make sure that the preschool is very kept up to date when it pertains to what your child is learning. Now, everything that I just said is a compromise, because if the world was ideal, and if it was only like 10 years, 15 years ago, I would just recommend a 40-hour program for your child. And as a provider, I would give you all of that with 5 or 6 therapists rotating and filling your child's hours. And that's honestly what you should be fighting for, because that is still the gold standard. And within 6 months, you'll know if it's working.
Yeah, it's what I want for you. It's what I had. It's a hard climate right now. But since you talked about hiring people, because I know some of you are like, hiring people, I have to hire people, I have to pay for them out of pocket. We did have some, and sometimes people do that. We did have somebody write into us from Canada and say that currently they're paying out of pocket for ABA at an ABA facility, and that it's cost prohibitive, and they're having to deal with all the things from the provider. So I'm at the point where I need help and guidance to hire my own team to cut back on costs, which should then allow more therapy hours for my son, or the same, but definitely not less costs than we currently have. And that they would like they say the change is needed now and urgently.
What do we do? What are the steps?
How do we hire a home-based ABA team?
So, I mean, it's pretty basic, right? So you start by just putting out an ad. And you know better than I do where you place an ad. Like, depending on where you are in Canada or in the U.S., You can place ads at universities. I would probably start with colleges, universities, and I'd place an ad for students who are interested in working 6 to 10 hours a week. Maybe 10 hours a week, because then you don't need as many of them. And you probably know what the going rate is. And then you would hire those folks, and let's say you'd get maybe 4 or 5 of them ideally, right? And then you would find online, there's lots of different training programs, as I said. There are programs that are all like didactic, so class time. There are programs that are all video based. There are some programs that are live. Fortunately, all of this now exists online. So you put your students that you've hired, your team, and by the way, they don't have to just be students. They could also be people that you know from church, or
Yes.
moms who have a free time once their child is in school, or you could just put together a team of dedicated people who care and want to do something on the side. And so you get them all trained, and these training programs are not that long. Honestly, they're probably it'll take like 2 weeks to get a team of people trained. And then I think if you can, depending on where you are, and depending on if your child has a lot of challenging behaviors, it would be ideal to hire a supervisor. And a supervisor is someone who is board certified. So it's a BCBA, which stands for Board Certified Behavior Analyst. And that person could easily guide, oversee the program, especially when it comes to challenging behaviors. That's the one that, if your child has like a lot of hitting, aggression, running away, that kind of stuff, that's a whole different set of procedures and protocols, and it's hard for you and your team to know how to deal with those things. It's a lot easier when you have a BCBA, because BCBAs are experts in how to deal with challenging behavior. So that would be ideal. I do know some people, by the way, who do this, and they consult on cases, and they do it through telehealth. So that's one thing. But you should also get on a curriculum or a platform online that guides you through the lessons that you have to teach. So the program that we built at CARD is called Skills. If you can get on there, I think it's not that expensive, honestly. It's like $70 a month or something like that, and you will have access to a wealth of information. I mean, we're talking, you start by answering a questionnaire about your child that puts together a very, very complete protocol and program for your child, really comprehensive, and it guides you. It tells you what's next and so on, and you just follow that. Like, it takes you from teaching basic imitation all the way to typical 8-year skills. So it's a very, very intense and comprehensive and detailed program that will teach your child everything they need to know, and it'll give you the ways and teaching points and techniques and all kinds of stuff. But you do need to know the ABA protocols and techniques. Now, we also have another online learning company called Institute for Behavioral Learning, IBT, or Behavioral Training, and you can look that up. You can get instruction on protocols through IBT, and then use Skills as your curriculum, and that's kind of how you have your team together. And then you have to make sure that you schedule your team. So like, one person works Monday and Wednesday mornings, another person works Tuesday, Thursday afternoons, whatever. Fill as many hours of your child's life as you can. And then once your child gets to school age, you would still want your therapists to go to school. You introduce your child to school, let's say 2 or 3 days a week at first with a therapist, and then you gradually will fade those folks out as the teacher takes over and your child's following instructions and doing what the other kids can do. But you can maintain your team for as long as your child needs, both in school, in home, in the community, whatever. They are there to assist your child and teach your child and help your child use communication instead of using challenging behaviors. And then that process goes on. And when you need expertise, and also, by the way, you need to like meet with the team every week to make sure everybody's consistent with each other, doing things the same way. You actually, when we used to do those meetings, you'd have each person kind of go around and show what they are doing with the child. Techniques are all the same, lessons are different, everybody's working on different things, it's fun, the child should be enjoying it. I know I made it sound a lot easier than it is. It's not easy when you're a parent and this is not your field. But there are fortunately a lot more resources out there now than there were 20 years ago.
And I have to say, across the years, we've seen families do this and be very successful. That
Absolutely.
I remember early on when Skills first came out, you took the whole first year and gave it to the world for free for a year. And there was a family, I want to say in Minnesota, we used to show the video of Maddie that they had Skills, they had it for free for a year, and they went to their church and they asked for volunteers. They got everybody trained.
Right.
And they, Maddie, doesn't have a diagnosis anymore.
Right. And actually, one of the parents of one of our fully recovered adults recently wrote to me, Mary Jane, and said, I would be happy to consult with other parents. I would be happy to guide them. And let me tell you, that's a gem. So if you want to talk to another parent who is willing to help you through the journey, this is a mom who did everything on her own. She hired people from her town, neighbors, people at church. I mean, she did it all. And in those days, there wasn't even internet. So we had one of our employees, Evelyn Kung, amazing clinician, fly out to see this family like once every couple of months.
It
and
would
give
almost
them
always
guidance.
be in the middle of a blizzard.
In the middle of a blizzard. And she would otherwise just give them feedback on the phone. I mean, if that's possible with the technology that's available nowadays, a lot is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. We know other people who have been able to hire college students. We know at least one sorority that adopted a child and said, because sororities and fraternities have to have a cause in order to be registered.
Honestly, what a fun, amazing thing for a sorority to do.
Absolutely. We know somebody that I don't know whether it was their Kiwanis Club or their Elks Club in the town, adopted a child and said, we're all going to get trained and we'll be part of the team. Like, there are ways to do it, and it isn't always as expensive as we all think when we think about it.
Right.
In a lot of these cases, people were volunteering their time. It's easier if you can afford to pay people. Let's be honest about that.
Well, I mean, without that, it's very hard, right? But I mean, I know that, like some parents, as you said, they had a lot of volunteers, and those volunteers were around for years, which was amazing.
And Andrea, I'm not sure whether that's a question. We've had this question many times before about, can parents do this training? And of course they can.
Yes.
But the question always is, if a parent becomes a registered behavior technician, an RBT, can they get paid to be on their own child's case? The answer I've always heard is no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's any kind of law written about that, but I just wouldn't do that because there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's appropriate. Like, it's like as a psychologist, I'm not really allowed to provide treatment to my own family.
Right.
And it's the same concept here. So that is not the right thing to do, but there are a lot of places where parents have set up like groups and they will help each other's kids. And that's something you certainly can do.
Exactly.
But it isn't, but that being said, like I feel like, and I work with parents who the mom has just become an RBT just so that they can understand a lot more of what's going on. And let me tell you, this mom, for instance, is really sharp and she fully understands it. And she went through and got her RBT.
Amazing. I lost a paper somewhere.
Yes,
it's on the floor. Okay. I'm like, why can't I not find it? I'm a little discombobulated today. I wanted to get to this other question. Please help us. We are doing early intervention with our 3-year-old son, and we could do 30 hours of ABA and get 3 hours of speech and 1 hour of OT, or we could get 40 hours of ABA and no speech and no OT which should we do?
Ooh, what was the age of the child?
3.
And this is a hard
It's a
one.
hard one.
Yeah. I can't answer that. It has to do with your child's capabilities. I wish, if you hear this, I would love to actually tell you the answer to that, but I would need to ask you a bunch of questions about your child.
Okay.
Because if your child has basic speech,
Yeah.
that means that they can, that means they have at least 20 labels.
Okay.
Then I would do all ABA.
Okay.
Yeah. But
If
if
they
they
don't,
if
you
they
would do-
don't, I would focus a little bit on speech, because speech will, there are techniques in speech therapy that have to do with the production of sound, which ABA people are not that good with. And if
Okay.
we can do some production of sound, that'll help kickstart the ABA. Now the OT question is completely different, because the OT helps regulate kids that have a lot of sensory dysregulation. And the dysregulation can show in the form of self-stimulatory behaviors. For example, if you have a child who's very, very focused on touching different types of materials or hair or sensory type of, if they're craving sensory input, or if they have visual issues, or if they have auditory, those types of things sometimes are, especially if they have motor, like if they're very, very active, or there are children who have, almost looks like they have vertigo. There's lots of things that help us identify that there's sensory dysregulation, like they'll get extremely hyper or extremely lethargic. Those types of children really do benefit from occupational therapy, but OT is usually only done a couple of hours a week, and so it shouldn't really come in the place of ABA or speech. Yeah, so if your child has absolutely no ability to produce sound or just basic labels, 10 or 20 labels, then you might want to have speech and ABA. But if they are able to, I do a lot more ABA.
Okay. I find it fascinating because a lot of people will come to this with this equation, but the hours of ABA are significantly less. That they'll say, I can do 10 hours of ABA.
Right.
Or,
10 hours of
and
ABA.
And I can do speech and OT.
Yeah.
Or I can do 30 hours of ABA.
Then I would
don't get to
always
the-
say, in that case, I would always say do the 30 hours of ABA, because
Yeah.
you're just not going to get the results that you want from 10 hours of ABA. It's just that simple. The child, it takes a lot more for the child to figure things out than we think. And providing the child the 30 hours or 40 hours allows the child to figure out kind of, oh, this is the pattern of when they say this, I have to imitate. When they say that, I have to imitate sound. When they show me an object, I have to label it. When I want something, I have to ask for it. All that stuff is that figure out.
Yeah. Well, language, I don't think
Language
we
is not
realize
easy.
how immersive language has to be able to pick it up quickly.
Right.
You-
exactly.
You could
Exactly.
study Spanish for the next 12 years and only just be slightly fluent if you're doing it for an hour a week, right?
Yes.
But if you went and moved to Spain and were forced to be immersed in it every hour of the day,
You'd pick it up
you
in
would
a
start
month.
to pick it up.
Yeah.
So, and that's really what you're trying to create,
That's
is this
exactly
immersive
right.
environment in which they're going to learn language. And
That's
so
exactly
many of you,
right.
so many of you say, well, I want them to be able to talk, but then you balk, and I understand it because I did too, when somebody talks about 30, 40 hours, but we need to not. We need
Yes.
to understand that is how much time it takes to learn language.
It's such a great way to put it, Shannon, because it's not like you're doing something other than immersing them in very structured language. That's exactly how you learn a second language. That's exactly right.
Yeah, I was at the TACA conference over the weekend, and I met two amazing preschool teachers. They teach 3-year-olds, and they really don't like ABA. and it wasn't my first time meeting them, and they know that I'm very pro-ABA and why I'm pro-ABA, and they wanted to talk to me about it again. and about why I'm so defensive about those 3-year-olds that they're teaching should be having time to have ABA. And they said, well, we just, well, we've seen it. We just don't think it's worthwhile for that many hours. And they have to be kids and they have to play and whatever. And of course, I now am learning all these years later that everybody's ABA is not your ABA.
Right, and also that ABA has changed.
Yes,
Yeah.
but but not necessarily for the better.
No, not for the better.
But I was explaining to them that a typical day for my son is that he would maybe sit not even at a table, but someplace, and that they would, say, okay, can you touch the green one?
Yeah.
Right? And so he would touch the green one. They'd go, good job, man, good job. And then they would move them around and go, okay, touch the red one. And if we were already learning red and green, right? But they did that, 10 trials, and they go, good job. You earned the thing that we asked you beforehand that you want to go play. Let's go race the cars.
Yeah, let's go play.
So then they would go to race the cars, but the brilliance of the people that you trained is that while they're racing the cars and having fun, they would go, do you want the red one or the green one?
Exactly.
So that they were taking,
Exactly.
and in that moment they were doing DTT, rewarded him for it, then took him over and embedded it in the thing that they were doing because they
Right.
were that level of sharp.
Right.
I don't think
Well,
that,
that's-
and they said, well, we haven't done that.
Right.
And I went, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
just sad
But we
and
just need more of
disappointing.
you.
Well,
We need
no,
more
but
of
I
you.
mean, that's just, Shannon, honestly, that's kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, which is
Yes.
the pure, really good ABA had to do with teaching a structured lesson, like something in discrete trial, and then generalizing
Yes.
it, right? And if you don't do the touch green and the touch
Yes.
red, then going to which one do you want without that earlier practice, the child's like, what are you even saying to me?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, so it has to have a component of each one. And it's important because, when teachers and sometimes parents will say, but shouldn't he have time to just be a child?
Yeah.
He should, but you don't have that time. You just don't have that time. So if I was to ask any parent, would you like your child to know how to play or how to talk?
Yeah.
Choose one.
Yeah.
And then we'll work on that. And that's the reality of it, and it just is.
But your children can have a really good time if there was somebody who knows what they're doing.
ABA becomes...
It has to be fair.
It becomes so much fun. It becomes the only mode of communication that the child understands and it makes sense to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it becomes fun. Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to acknowledge that Andrea said that it wasn't a question about the RBT. She says Florida Health does it, that she's agreed to become an RBT through them.
Great.
But she says, I don't want to do my son's therapy.
Yeah.
I want to be mom to him, LOL. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good plan.
Absolutely. You can't. It's very, very hard. I mean, I even tried using ABA techniques with my kids when they were young, and there's too much emotion involved with your own kids, You can't do it. It's hard.
Well, we bring a lot of baggage to the table.
We do.
Let's face
do.
it. Okay. We've got a couple of minutes if anybody wants to write in the last question, but I also wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about this event that we're having
That's
this
right.
weekend.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, on Saturday the 28th, we have our annual fundraiser, which is All Ghouls Gala, and it is a adults Halloween party
Yes.
at the Woodland Hills Country Club in Woodland Hills, California. This is the northern section of Los Angeles. If you are in the area, if you can make it, the event starts at 7:30, and we would love to have you join us. Thank you, Chris, who's put the information up for you. You can purchase a ticket there, and this is a fundraiser. So all of
Yes.
the money that we raise, and let me tell you, first of all, it's going to be an amazing event.
Yeah.
And all the money that we raise here goes directly to families who have children on the spectrum. We don't fund things like research, etc. We fund families for whatever they need, for services, for treatments, for medical, labs, iPads for communication, safety equipment, helmets, fences around their house, whatever they need, right, to help their child, stimulus materials now, all kinds of stuff. And the event is amazing. We have three incredible people that we are honoring, and it's called, what is it called? The
Lending Your Voice Award.
I love that. An old friend of mine said that to me a long time ago, and he also was very involved in lending his voice to us, Lou Diamond Phillips. And he said, it's a privilege for me to share the spotlight that I have with ACT Today.
Yeah.
And so our organization, Autism Care Today, is honoring Dr. Temple Grandin, of course, first, most incredible human being.
Yeah.
So much to learn from her. Ariva Martin, who is an amazing attorney and advocate in this field. And of course, Joe Mantegna, who is a fantastic actor who has lent his voice to this cause in many, many different ways over the years. And we're very thrilled to honor all three of them. There's a lot of fun activities. There's a casino at the event, which is going to be fun. There's incredible prizes that we are, that people will put in a raffle. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope that you will join us. We look forward to it.
Yeah, and if you can't join because you can't get to Los Angeles, I want to put it out there that the ticket price is so reasonable.
Yeah.
It's $125, and it's food and alcohol included in
It's
that.
everything,
Like, you just can't. There are some things that you can purchase and participate in that are more money at the
like
event.
the
Want to say
casino.
that, like the casino and the raffle tickets and things like that. Dr. Grandin will be there, and you'll have the opportunity to have a book signed by her if you want to purchase the book. So that's an amazing thing. But if you're not able to come, and you'd like to donate the cost of a ticket to someone else, a parent here in Los Angeles who maybe can't afford the $125, you absolutely can do that. You can go on Eventbrite and you can do that, or you can write specifically to me and say, Shannon, I'm going to put my name on here, but I want you to give it to somebody. I will be happy to find somebody who will go and be thrilled about that. And not just a parent. We have some adults that are on the spectrum that I'm sure would love to attend as well, and that's for them, and that's, if you're a young person, $125 to go to a party is a little, like you may or may not be able to afford it.
And we have some of our actors.
We have actors on the spectrum galore who are going to be there. Last year, one of our honorees was Kobe Bird. He's going to be there on the red carpet. You guys know him from the Netflix show Lock and Key. I believe that Jamie Brewster is joining us again. She, not an actor on the spectrum, but a special needs actor that is famous for doing American Horror Story.
Right.
Kayla Cromer will be there on the red carpet. She played the lead in that show, Everything's Gonna Be Okay. I loved that show. And in fact, Lillian Kramer will also be there. She played the other lead in that show. She'll be there with her twin sister and their dogs.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
And Alex Plank, who is an actor and a consultant, he consulted and plays a small role in the new movie that's coming out. I don't know what the name of it is yet. It just debuted in Toronto. There is a young kid on the spectrum. It's Robert De Niro, Bobby Cannavale, who I love, and Rose Byrne. Bobby Cannavale and Rose Byrne play the parents of, I think he's 10 years old on the spectrum.
Amazing.
And Alex was the consultant on that and also played a doctor.
Oh, great.
In that movie.
Great.
So we're all waiting for that to come. It will be out for the award season.
Yep.
So, and a lot of others, too many names for me to remember. So, and other celebrities that will be on the red carpet and be there playing poker. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
And you
There's
will be there.
There's no poker.
That's what I meant. I meant casino.
Yeah,
no poker.
Casino.
There's no poker. Poker is not happening.
There's
roulette and craps and other things, but there's no poker.
Exactly.
There's blackjack, I think.
Blackjack, yes.
But you love Halloween a little bit.
I do. I think it's a fun holiday in the sense that everybody gets to just, we all kind of have a facade because of who, we're our faces, right? And if you are someone else for a night or a day, it removes some of the, social norms that you have to adhere to, right? And you can just be who you are. So it's kind of fun.
It's fun to play.
Yeah, it's
and
play.
To
It's play.
pretend
That's
and
right.
Be
That's
All
exactly
my
what it
theater
is.
teachers used to say, it's called a play for a reason.
That's
You're in a play,
right.
you should be playing.
It's so
And
true.
I do think it's fun for us
It's so
all to like
true.
wear something else and be a little different. And this is a
Absolutely.
costume party. There are costume
Oh yeah, it's a
awards.
costume contest with monetary awards.
Yes, yes. So,
That'll be fun.
and we won't reveal right now, but on next Tuesday, we will show you a little bit of video and some pictures so that you'll get to see who we dressed up as. I'm normally Autism Live is on the red carpet covering it. I'm not doing that this year.
Okay,
I
good.
may. I'm going to be running the red carpet. I may catch a couple of short interviews with people on my phone, but I may not too. It's
Yeah,
going to be busy,
yeah.
so we'll see.
Yeah.
But we'll give you all the dish.
Should be
We'll
fun.
spill the tea a week from today and let you know how it went. So anyway, we're out of time.
Thank you.
But thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, my
always.
pleasure, and thank you,
Amazing.
Shannon.
And we will be back next Tuesday to tell you everything about that. You'll want to tune in then. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you